It was a cold Tuesday evening in November when David first saw her. The rain was coming down hard, and most people were rushing to get inside somewhere warm. David had just finished another long day at his computer job downtown. He was tired and ready to go home to his quiet apartment. As he walked down the busy street, something made him slow down. There, sitting in the doorway of an old bookstore that had closed for the day, was a young woman. She was trying to stay dry under the small roof above the door. What caught his attention wasn't just that she was homeless. He had seen many people on the streets before. It was what she was doing. She had a small, worn notebook in her hands and was drawing something with a tiny pencil. Even in the dim light from the street lamp, he could see how focused she was on her work. Her clothes were old and dirty, but she sat with her back straight. There was something about the way she held herself that showed she still had pride. Even in her difficult situation, David had grown up with his grandmother, who always told him to help others when he could. "You never know what someone is going through," she used to say. "A little kindness can change everything." Those words came back to him as he watched the young woman, carefully shading something in her drawing. Most people walked by without even looking at her. Some crossed to the other side of the street. But David found himself stopping. He pulled out his wallet and walked closer. "Excuse me," he said gently. "It's really cold tonight. Would you like some money for food or coffee?" The woman looked up at him. Her eyes were tired, but they were also intelligent and alert. She had been on the streets long enough to be careful around strangers. She studied his face for a moment before speaking. "Thank you, but I don't take handouts," she said quietly. Her voice was soft but firm. "I appreciate the offer, though." David was surprised. Most people in her situation would have gladly accepted help. But something about her refusal made him respect her even more. He noticed she was shivering, and her thin jacket wasn't doing much to keep her warm. "What are you drawing?" he asked, genuinely curious. She hesitated, then tilted the notebook so he could see. It was a beautiful sketch of the street scene in front of them, but she had drawn it as if the sun was shining. The buildings looked warm and welcoming, and she had added flowers in the windows and people smiling as they walked by. "That's incredible," David said, and he meant it. "Really talented." A small smile crossed her face, the first one he had seen. "I like to draw things as they could be, not as they are," she said. David looked at the drawing again, then at the cold, wet street around them. The contrast was striking. Here was someone who had every reason to be bitter and angry, but instead, she was creating beauty and hope. "Listen," he said, surprising himself with what he was about to say. "I live just a few blocks from here. Would you like to come have dinner and get warm? Just for tonight?" The woman's expression changed immediately. Her guard went back up, and she clutched her notebook tighter. "I don't know you," she said. "That could be dangerous." "You're right to be careful," David said. "I'm not asking for anything. I just hate the thought of anyone being out in this weather. My grandmother always said our job is to help each other when we can." She studied his face again, looking for any sign that he might not be trustworthy. David could see she was having an internal debate. The cold was getting worse, and the rain was starting to come down harder. "Just for one night," she said finally, "and I'll leave first thing in the morning." "Of course," David said. "Whatever makes you comfortable." As they walked to his apartment, David learned that her name was Lisa. She had been living on the streets for about 8 months. She didn't tell him much more than that, and he didn't push. He could tell that sharing even that much was difficult for her. Lisa was amazed when she saw David's apartment. It was clean and modern, with a nice view of the city. But what struck her most was how empty it felt. There were no personal touches, no photos, no signs that someone actually lived there and enjoyed being there. "You can use the bathroom to clean up if you want," David offered. "I'll make us something to eat." When Lisa came out of the bathroom 20 minutes later, she looked like a completely different person. Her hair was clean and pulled back, and her face was no longer covered with dirt from the streets. David realized she was probably around his age, maybe a year or two younger. Over dinner, they talked carefully. Lisa told him she had been studying art in college before everything went wrong. She didn't go into details about what had happened, but David could tell it had been traumatic. David shared that he worked in technology but often felt lonely, despite having a good job and nice apartment. I have everything I thought I wanted, he said, but something's missing. Lisa nodded. I had big dreams once too. Funny how life can change so quickly. After dinner, David showed her to his guest room. It was small but comfortable, with clean sheets and a warm blanket. Lisa stood in the doorway, looking overwhelmed. I can't remember the last time I slept in a real bed, she said quietly. Well, tonight you can sleep as long as you want, David replied. And don't worry about leaving early. The weather is supposed to be bad tomorrow too. That night, David lay awake thinking about Lisa and her drawings. He couldn't get the image out of his head, her sitting in that doorway, creating something beautiful while the world rushed by without noticing her. He realized that in trying to help her, she might actually be helping him too. For the first time in months, he felt like he had done something that really mattered. In the guest room, Lisa was also awake. She hadn't felt safe in so long that it was hard to relax. But gradually, the warmth of the room and the softness of the bed helped her drift off to sleep. As she did, she thought about David's kindness and wondered if there might still be good people in the world after all. The next morning, David woke up to the smell of coffee and something cooking. For a moment, he was confused. He lived alone and never cooked breakfast. Then he remembered Lisa was still there. He walked to the kitchen and found her making pancakes. She had somehow found ingredients he didn't even know he had and was cooking like she belonged there. The apartment felt different, warmer somehow. Good morning, she said, looking a bit embarrassed. I hope you don't mind. I wanted to make breakfast as a thank you. I found some flour and eggs in your cupboard. Mind, this is amazing, David said, sitting down at his small table. I usually just grab coffee and run out the door. As they ate, David noticed Lisa kept glancing toward the window. The weather report was calling for snow, and it was already starting to fall lightly outside. You know, David said carefully, the weather is going to be pretty bad for the next few days. You're welcome to stay until it clears up, Lisa put down her fork. I can't do that, I said one night, and I meant it. I don't want to take advantage of your kindness. You're not taking advantage of anything, David replied. Look, I have a spare room that nobody uses. And honestly, it's nice having someone to talk to. Lisa was quiet for a long moment. She'd been on her own for so long that accepting help felt dangerous. But the thought of going back out into the cold made her stomach turn. Maybe just until the storm passes, she said finally. But I want to help around here. I can clean, cook, whatever you need. David smiled. Deal. Over the next 3 days, as the snow piled up outside, something unexpected happened. Lisa began to transform David's apartment. She didn't change anything major, but she added small touches that made the place feel like a home instead of just somewhere to sleep. She arranged his books in a way, looked natural instead of just stuffed on shelves. She found some old candles in a drawer and put them on the table. She even talked him into buying a small plant when they went grocery shopping together. Plants make everything feel more alive, she explained as she placed it by the window. David watched her work and realized how empty his life had become. He went to work, came home, watched TV, and went to bed. He had friends, but they were more like work buddies than real friends. He couldn't remember the last time he had looked forward to coming home, but now he found himself hurrying back from work each day, curious about what Lisa might be doing. Sometimes he found her reading one of his books, other times she was cooking. Something that smelled incredible. And always she was sketching. Can I see more of your drawings? He asked one evening as they sat on his couch after dinner. Lisa hesitated, then went to get her notebook. She sat next to him and slowly turned the pages. David was amazed by what he saw. There were drawings of people she had met on the streets, but she had drawn them with dignity and hope. There were sketches of buildings, but she had imagined them as beautiful instead of run down. These are incredible, David said. You have a real gift. I used to think so, Lisa said quietly. I was in art school, you know. I had big plans. I was going to have gallery shows and sell my work. I thought I was going to be somebody. You are somebody, David said firmly. These drawings prove it. What happened to make you stop believing in yourself? Lisa was quiet for a long time. David could see she was struggling with whether to trust him with her story. I lost my job at the coffee shop where I worked, she said finally. I couldn't pay rent, so I got kicked out of my apartment. My family said I was irresponsible and cut me off. My friends disappeared when I needed help. I tried staying at shelters, but they were full or unsafe. Before I knew it, I was sleeping outside. David felt his heart break for her. That's terrible. It doesn't mean you're not talented. It just means you had some bad luck. Bad luck? Lisa laughed, but there was no humor in it. I made bad choices. I trusted the wrong people. Oh, I wasn't. Careful with money, it was my fault. Maybe some of it was, David said. But that doesn't mean you deserved to end up on the streets. It doesn't mean you can't turn things around. Lisa looked at him with surprise. Most people either pitied her or judged her. But David seemed to see her as a person who had simply hit a rough patch. You really think I could still make something of myself? She asked. I know you can, David said. I've seen your work. I've seen how you've improved my apartment in just 3 days. You have talent and you're smart. You just need a chance. That night, Lisa lay in the guest bed thinking about what David had said. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to hope. Maybe her story wasn't over. Maybe this was just a difficult chapter, not the end of the book. Meanwhile, David was in his own room, thinking about how much his life had changed in just a few days. He had been going through the motions, but Lisa's presence had reminded him what it felt like to actually live. Her optimism, despite everything she had been through, was inspiring. The next morning, David made a decision. I want to help you get back on your feet, he told Lisa over breakfast. Not just with a place to stay, but with your art. I think you should try to sell some of your work. Lisa shook her head. Who would want to buy drawings from a homeless person? Who would want to buy drawings from a talented artist who has an amazing story to tell? David corrected. Your art shows hope in dark places. People need that. Lisa felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, excitement about her future. Maybe David was right. Maybe she could turn her life around. Maybe, just maybe, she had found not just a place to stay, but a real friend who believed in her. As the snow continued to fall outside, both of them realized that something special was happening. They were helping each other heal, one conversation and one day at a time. 2 weeks had passed since that snowy night, and David's apartment had become a completely different place. Lisa had not only made it feel like a home, but she had also brought life back into David's daily routine. Every morning they would have coffee together before he left for work. Every evening, he would come home to the smell of dinner cooking and the sound of Lisa humming while she cleaned or drew. But David could see that Lisa was getting restless. She would stare out the window for long periods, and sometimes he caught her looking at him with a worried expression. He knew what was coming before she said anything. One Thursday evening, after they had finished dinner, Lisa finally spoke up. David, I need to talk to you about something important, she said, her voice serious. David felt his stomach drop. He had been dreading this conversation, but he knew it was coming. I've been here for 2 weeks now, Lisa continued. You've been incredibly kind to me, but I can't stay here forever. I need to get my own place and start taking care of myself again. David set down his coffee cup. Lisa, there's no rush. You can stay as long as you need to. But that's exactly the problem, Lisa said, her voice getting stronger. I can't let myself get comfortable depending on someone else. I did that before, and when everything fell apart, I had nothing. I can't make that mistake again. David could see the fear in her eyes, but also the determination. He understood where she was coming from, but the thought of her going back to the streets made him feel sick. What if we found you a job first? He suggested. I could help you look. Maybe ask around at work. We could find you an apartment that you could afford. Lisa shook her head. David, you don't understand. I appreciate everything you've done. I really do. But I need to do this on my own. I need to prove to myself that I can take care of myself. But why does it have to be all or nothing? David asked, frustrated. Why can't you let people help you? Because help always comes with strings attached, Lisa said, her voice getting sharp. Everyone who helped me before expected something back. When I couldn't give them what they wanted, they disappeared. Won't let that happen again. David felt hurt by her words. Is that what you think this is? That I'm expecting something? From you? Lisa looked at him and her expression softened. No, I don't think that about you. But David, what happens when you get tired of having me around? What happens when you meet someone special and want your space back? What happens when I become more trouble than I'm worth? David realized that Lisa's fear wasn't really about being independent. It was about being abandoned again. She was trying to leave before she could be left. Lisa, I would never just kick you out, he said gently. You're not a burden to me. You've made my life better, not worse. Say that now, Lisa replied. But things change. People change their minds. Learned that the hard way. The next morning, David woke up to find Lisa packing her few belongings into a small bag. She had made breakfast and left it on the table for him, along with a note that said simply, "Thank you for everything. You saved my life." David ran outside, still in his pajamas, but Lisa was already gone. For the first time in weeks, David came home to an empty, quiet apartment. The plant Lisa had bought was still by the window, and her drawings were still scattered on his coffee table. But the warmth and life she had brought to the place seemed to have disappeared with her. David couldn't concentrate at work. He kept thinking about Lisa out there somewhere, probably cold and hungry again. That evening, he walked the streets downtown, looking for her. He found her 3 blocks from his apartment, sitting under the awning of a closed restaurant. "Lisa," he called out, but she looked away when she saw him. "Please don't make this harder than it already is," she said. David sat down next to her, not caring that the ground was cold and dirty. "At least let me bring you food sometimes. Let me know you're okay." Lisa nodded slightly. "Okay, but that's all over the next week?" David would stop by every evening after work. He would bring her dinner, and they would talk for a few minutes. But Lisa kept their conversations short and distant. She was building walls around herself again. David could see her spirit getting crushed a little more each day. Then, on a particularly cold night, David found the spot where Lisa usually stayed empty. He asked other people on the street, and someone told him she had been taken to the hospital that morning. David rushed to the emergency room, his heart pounding. He found Lisa in a hospital bed, looking small and pale under the white sheets. A doctor told him she had pneumonia and had been brought in just in time. "Are you family?" the nurse asked. David hesitated for just a moment. "Yes," he lied. Her brother. For 3 days, David sat by Lisa's bedside. She was unconscious most of the time, but when she was awake, she seemed surprised that he was there. "Why are you doing this?" she asked weakly on the 3rd day. "'Cause I care about you," David said simply. "Not because I want something from you, not because I pity you, because you matter to me." Lisa turned her head away, but David could see tears in her eyes. "I was so scared," she whispered. "When I got sick, I realized I might die alone, and no one would even know. I thought about how I pushed you away, and I regretted it." David took her hand gently. "You're not alone. You don't have to be. But what if I mess up again?" Lisa asked. "What if I disappoint you?" "Then we'll figure it out together," David said. That's what people who care about each other do. For the first time since she had left his apartment, Lisa smiled a real smile. Maybe she thought it was okay to let someone care about her. Maybe not everyone would leave. Maybe David was different. When Lisa got out of the hospital, things were different between her and David. The walls she had built around herself had cracked during those scary days when she was sick. She realized that pushing people away didn't protect her, it just made her more alone. This time, when David offered to help her get back on her feet, Lisa said yes. But she had conditions. "I want to pay you back for everything," she told him as they sat in his living room. "The hospital bills, the food, everything. I don't know how long it will take, but I will pay you back." David wanted to tell her not to worry about the money, but he could see how important this was to her. "Okay," he agreed. "We'll keep track of everything, and you can pay me back when you're able to." Lisa also insisted on having her own space. David's couch became her bed, and she set up a small area in the corner of his living room for her art supplies. It wasn't much, but it was hers. "I need to feel like I have some independence," she explained. "Even if it's just a corner of your apartment," David understood. He could see that Lisa needed to rebuild her confidence step by step. The first thing, they worked on together was Lisa's art. David helped her organize all her drawings and sketches. Some were old from before she became homeless. Others were new, drawn during her time on the streets. Together, they told an amazing story. "Look at this," David said, holding up two drawings side by side. One was from her college days, a perfect still life of flowers in a vase. The other was a recent sketch of an old man feeding pigeons on the street. "Your old work is technically perfect, but this new one has so much more feeling in it." Lisa looked at the drawings with fresh eyes. "I guess going through hard times changed how I see the world." "It made your art more powerful," David said. "People need to see these." Together, they created a simple website to showcase Lisa's work. David handled the technical parts, while Lisa wrote descriptions for each piece. It was slow work, but Lisa felt proud as she watched her online gallery take shape. "I never thought I'd have my own website," she said, staring at the screen. "Is just the beginning," David replied. David also introduced Lisa to his friend Tom, who worked at a local coffee shop. Tom needed someone to help during the busy morning hours, and he didn't mind that Lisa had been homeless. What mattered to him was that she was reliable and willing to work hard. "I can't promise it will be easy," Tom warned her during the interview. "We get really busy, and some customers can be difficult." "I've dealt with much worse," Lisa said with a small smile. She was right. After months of surviving on the streets, handling cranky customers who were upset about their coffee orders seemed easy. Lisa was grateful for the work, and she was good at it. She was friendly with customers and quick to learn new tasks. 4. The first time in almost a year, Lisa had a routine again. She would get up early, work at the coffee shop until mid-afternoon, then come back to David's apartment to work on her art. In the evenings, she and David would have dinner together and talk about their days. Slowly, Lisa started to feel like herself again. The scared, broken person who had been sleeping in doorways was being replaced by someone stronger and more confident. One evening, about 2 months after she started working, Lisa showed David something special. "I sold my first piece today," she said, trying to contain her excitement. David jumped up from the couch. "Really? Which one?" "The drawing of the woman with the shopping cart. A customer at the coffee shop saw it on my phone and asked if she could buy it. She paid me $50. David hugged her, lifting her off the ground. "Lisa, that's incredible. I'm so proud of you." As he held her, both of them realized something had changed. This wasn't just a hug between friends. There was something deeper happening between them. They pulled apart, both feeling a little embarrassed by the moment. "I should probably start looking for my own place soon," Lisa said quietly. "Do you want to?" David asked. Lisa was quiet for a long time. The truth was she didn't want to leave. She had grown to love their evening conversations, their shared meals, and the way David believed in her dreams. But she was scared to admit her feelings. "I don't know," she said honestly. Over the next few weeks, Lisa's art started getting more attention. Word spread about the talented artist working at the coffee shop, and people began coming in specifically to see her work. She sold 3 more pieces, and a local gallery owner reached out to her about possibly doing a small show. "I can't believe this is happening," Lisa told David one night as they looked at the email from the gallery owner. "I can," David said. "You're talented, and now people are finally getting to see it." Lisa looked at him, really looked at him. Here was someone who had seen her at her lowest point and still believed in her. Someone who had helped her without asking for anything in return. Someone who celebrated her successes as if they were his own. "David," she said softly. "Yeah, thank you for everything. I know I haven't always been easy to help." "You don't need to thank me," David replied. "Helping you has been one of the best things that's ever happened to me." They were sitting close together on the couch, and Lisa could feel her heart beating faster. She realized that somewhere along the way, her feelings for David had grown into something much deeper than gratitude. The night of Lisa's art show opening arrived faster than either of them expected. The small gallery was packed with people who had come to see her work. Lisa wore a simple black dress that David had helped her pick out. She looked radiant. As Lisa stood next to her paintings, explaining her work to interested visitors, David watched from across the room. He was amazed by her transformation. The confident, articulate woman talking to art collectors was the same person he had found shivering in a doorway just a few months ago. But more than that, he realized he had fallen in love with her. Not with the idea of helping her, not with the story of her recovery, but with her strength, her kindness, her talent, and her incredible spirit. At the end of the evening, after they had sold several more pieces and received praise from critics and collectors, Lisa found David standing outside the gallery. So she said, walking up to him, "How does it feel to be right?" "About what?" David asked. "About me? About my art? About everything?" Lisa stepped closer to him. "Wow, David, I need to tell you something." Before she could say anything else, David gently cupped her face in his hands. "I love you," he said simply. Lisa's eyes filled with tears, but they were happy tears. "I love you too," she whispered. They kissed under the streetlight outside the gallery, and both of them knew that this was the beginning of something beautiful. 2 years had passed since that magical night outside the gallery, when David and Lisa first said they loved each other. Life had changed dramatically for both of them, but in the best possible way. Lisa was no longer the struggling artist working at a coffee shop. Her paintings were now displayed in galleries across the city, and she had her own small studio space downtown. Her art had found its audience, people who connected with her message of hope and resilience. She painted scenes of everyday life, but always with a touch of beauty and possibility that made people see the world differently. David had also transformed. Working alongside Lisa had inspired him to find more meaning in his own life. He had started a small nonprofit organization that helped people experiencing homelessness learn job skills, particularly in technology. What began as helping one person had grown into helping dozens. Their relationship had grown stronger through all the changes. They had moved in together officially, turning David's apartment into a true home filled with Lisa's artwork and plants everywhere. They had learned to balance supporting each other while maintaining their independence. But the most important change was about to happen. On a cold November evening, exactly 3 years after the night they first met, David had a special plan. He had asked Lisa to meet him downtown after she finished work at her studio. "Why do you want to meet at that old bookstore?" Lisa had asked when he called her earlier. "Just trust me," David had said mysteriously. Lisa walked down the familiar street, remembering the first time she had been there, like a lifetime ago. She was no longer the desperate, scared woman who had sat in that doorway. Now she walked with confidence, wearing a warm coat and carrying herself like someone who belonged in the world. When she reached the bookstore, she saw David standing in the exact spot where she used to sit. He was holding a small box and smiling nervously. "David, what are you doing?" Lisa asked, but she already suspected what was happening. "3 years ago, I found the most amazing woman sitting right here," David said. "She was cold and hungry, but she was drawing pictures of hope. I thought I was helping her, but she ended up saving me." Lisa felt tears starting in her eyes. "Lisa, you taught me what it means to truly care about someone. You showed me that love isn't about fixing someone or being needed by them. It's about growing together and supporting each other's dreams." David got down on one knee, right there on the sidewalk where they had first met. "Will you marry me?" he asked, opening the small box to reveal a simple but beautiful ring. Lisa didn't hesitate. "For even a second, yes," she said, laughing and crying at the same time. As David slipped the ring onto her finger, a small crowd of people had gathered to watch. They all cheered when Lisa said yes, and an elderly woman shouted, "That's the most romantic thing I've ever seen." 6 months later, on a warm spring day, David and Lisa had their wedding in a beautiful park downtown. It wasn't a big celebration, but it was perfect. Lisa's art friends were there, along with David's coworkers and the people they had helped through their nonprofit work. Tom from the coffee shop walked Lisa down the aisle since she had no family of her own. "I'm proud of you, kid," he whispered as he handed her over to David. Lisa's wedding dress was simple but elegant, and she had painted small flowers on her shoes, a personal touch that made David smile when he saw them. During their vows, David spoke about how Lisa had taught him that helping others wasn't about being a hero, but about recognizing that everyone has something valuable to offer. Lisa talked about how David had shown her that accepting help wasn't a sign of weakness, but a way of letting love into her life. "You saw me when I was invisible," she said, looking into his eyes. "You believed in me when I had stopped believing in myself. And you loved me not because I needed saving, but because of who I was underneath everything." There wasn't a dry eye. In the audience, after the wedding, David and Lisa threw themselves into expanding their nonprofit work. They had an idea that combined both of their passions, art and helping people. They opened a community center in a renovated building downtown. The bottom floor offered job training and support services for people experiencing homelessness. The top floor was an art studio where people could take classes and work on creative projects. "Art saved my life," Lisa would tell the people who came to their programs, "gave me a way to express hope when I had nothing else. Maybe it can help you too." The center became known throughout the city as a place where people could get practical help, while also reconnecting with their creativity and dignity. One of their first success stories was a man named Robert who had been living on the streets for 2 years. He started coming to the center for the free meals, but gradually became interested in the art classes. It turned out he had a talent for sculpture. "I forgot I was good at anything," Robert told Lisa one day as he worked on a piece made from recycled materials. "Reminded me that I'm still a person with gifts to share." Within a year, Robert had gotten a job in his own apartment. His sculptures were displayed in the center's gallery, inspiring other people to believe in their own potential. David and White's work caught the attention of city officials and other organizations. They were invited to speak at conferences about their approach to helping people experiencing homelessness. "The key is treating people like whole human beings," David would tell audiences. "Everyone has talents and dreams. Sometimes they just need someone to believe in them while they get back on their feet." 5 years after their wedding, David and Lisa stood in front of their community center, looking at a mural Lisa had painted on the side of the building. It showed hands reaching out to help each other, with words in beautiful lettering that said, "Everyone has a story. Everyone deserves a chance." "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't stopped that night?" Lisa asked. Taking David's hand, "I try not to," David said, "because I can't imagine my life without you in it." "I used to be so angry about everything that went wrong," Lisa said. "Now I'm grateful. If I hadn't lost everything, I never would have been sitting in that doorway, and if I hadn't been there, we never would have met." David squeezed her hand. "Sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead to the best things." As they walked home together, passing the bookstore where they first met, Lisa thought about all the people they had helped over the years. Each person had their own story, their own struggles, and their own potential for happiness. She and David had learned that helping others wasn't just about giving money or offering shelter. It was about seeing people as they truly were and believing they could become even more. Their love story had started with a simple act of kindness on a cold night, but it had grown into something much bigger, a life dedicated to spreading hope and showing others that everyone deserves a second chance at happiness. And every time they passed that bookstore doorway, they remembered that sometimes the most beautiful things in life begin in the most unexpected places.